This movie is about Henry V, and I heard you happened to play Henry V earlier in life.
Yeah, like half of a lifetime ago. I was 25 when I did Henry IV, 1 and 2, and I was 26 the following year we did Henry V.
How did that prepare you for writing a modern retelling of his story?
Well, I think it just gave me a real love and deep understanding for the play, and so I always, whenever I saw a production of it come up, or I would, in subsequent years, I remember rereading the plays, and so it just kind of became part of my timeline, part of my history, part of my interest. And later in life, cut to 2012, I'd been asked to do a Sword and Horse movie, and my mind just went back to Henry V, and I thought, why doesn't someone do this again? Albeit, like, we took that material and, ran off with the Pixies with it, did our own thing.
Yeah. Had you ever played Henry before in a production or just recited the St. Crispin's Day speech?
No, I hadn't, and I know Joel Edgerton, who plays Falstaff, did, though, and he did it in Sydney, and it was supposed to be a legendary production. You didn't see it either, though.
No, but it was legendary.
but we know it was legendary.
That's what you've heard.
That's what we've heard.
Yeah.
Through the grapevine.
Yeah, from Joel.
Through the
That's
Shakespeare.
what Joel tells everyone.
But how daunting is it to reimagine Shakespeare, for a modern sensibility?
Yeah, and it's interesting you should mention the St. Crispin's Day speech, because we knew we were moving away from Shakespeare in quite radical ways, so I never found it daunting, except when it came to writing a big speech before the Battle of Agincourt. That's such a famous speech. I needed to rewrite it. I found thematic ways to get around, feeling like I wasn't having to try and match or better Shakespeare. I found thematic ways of making the speech about something else, and then knowing that it was going to be coming out of the mouth of Timmy somehow made it all feel good, and it was.
This feels like a departure, at least in the roles I've seen you in, where you're playing an adult, or rather a young person who's thrust into adulthood and no time to grow up. So what did you discover in doing that?
The royal circumstance, the political circumstance, or just generally, as you said, the situation of being a young person thrust into adulthood. The lesson was the lack of lessons in it, let's put it that way, like the total ambiguity of that kind of situation, and a feeling reminiscent of when you realize your parents are just humans, and the idea that somebody this age could have been, assuming leadership of a country is absurd. And today you still have mechanisms of power where people are born into their positions, or born into the leaderships of countries. It's a scary thing. So that was the biggest lesson. Yeah.
What was your opinion of Falstaff when you first were introduced to the character, and how did you come to see him evolve into what he is in this film?
Well, David and I had very early conversations about this. Is even before it wasn't like we were trying to evolve it into a character that I could play on screen. It was like we were trying to do the best thing by the screenplay. We were looking at what was an old man, Falstaff's referred to as an old man. And an old man like Henry IV, who died at 45, that was an old man. But Falstaff could technically be considered an old man at the age of 45. We also, because we were diving into true history, Falstaff was, some people say, based on a character called John Oldcastle, a real man, who had been a general in wars for Richard II and subsequently for Henry IV. So that he'd been in and around war, he'd experienced battle as a general, and that maybe that's what led to his alcoholism and squandering his life away in a pub. And we thought that was a really interesting thing, especially if Howe was later going to drag Falstaff back to the battlefield, which does happen in Henry IV, Part 1 and 2. We just keep him alive for a little bit longer.
How serendipitous does it feel to be talking about this film right now, when it feels like the whole world's caught up in what foreign leaders were saying to each other behind closed doors?
I think it's a testament to the power of Shakespeare. To the extent that that's where we began, how eternally relevant it is. When Joel and I first started talking about it, we were finding parallels with, a George W. administration or an Obama administration. It just continues, its relevance just continues rolling on. Basically what the relevance being, these cabals of just men with agenda.
As a writer, you're writing your version of St. Crispin's Day.
Yeah.
But you're also, you're in the armor, you're in the mud, you've done big movies before, but that looked like a lot.
The task of shooting Agincourt was huge. I mean, being inside of it just as an actor, that was, intense. But I just my mind kept drifting back to David and the epic nature of planning something like that. How much thought goes into it, how much planning, how many personnel. That task is so gargantuan. So I was very impressed with how they pulled it all together. But like that battle, there are a lot of people around the world who like battle enthusiasts. Ridley Scott's one of them. I just desperately want him to watch the movie because I'm like, how did you feel about it? Because people know what happened and when and who did what, and how many men were part of what. But of course, like with all of it, we took our own artistic license as well. So I'd be curious to know how it sort of stands the litmus test of historians.